and then...
Yeah. So, I guess I'm not going to start at the beginning again. So, Vegas. And I remember one of the guys I picked up from Vegas, he was also, like, made fun of. I think I mentioned that before. Oh, yeah, with Jazz. But the guy in Vegas, this guy, he had open heart surgery. And he was like a little kid in his head because he had been in a huge car accident. And I remember one time, somebody gave him half a cigarette, and he's like, "Hey guys, guess what? I got half a cigarette." Then everybody looked at him and I was like, "Oh, who gave you that?" It's like, "Oh, you know the guys, you know those guys." And then like he just realized how stupid he looked, even though he was dumb or whatever. He was like, you know. And I'm like, "You just had open heart surgery, you know? Like you really should be smoking." But he was one of the people that I gave me gas money to get away. But everybody at that shelter smoked cigarettes. And only one of the staff members that worked there smoked. And so I pointed that out. I'm like, "Hey," because there was exactly like a certain number of bunks or whatever, like 50. And I went through, I'm like, "Yeah, every single person here smokes." Because we'd be out there in the snow. And there were some cats there with long hair. And the homeless people were so nice to the cats, you know? And the cats had long hair. But guess who the cats loved the most, you know? This fat guy over there. No, they love me the most, right? They're like, "Why do those cats love you so much?" But anyways, that was the homeless shelter Santa Fe. So that's like a whole chapter. But then I get those guys, and then I drop one off at a train station, and I drop the other off somewhere else. I'm trying to refresh my memory by doing this. Alright, then, so then I go to Vegas, but while I was at the shelter in Santa Fe, they gave you like all this unlimited canned food, and they hooked you up so much with like canned food and all kinds of stuff, because it was like the #1 place in Santa Fe, and like restaurants came there every night to cook full meals, so it's a great place to eat. But while I was living there, it was a huge snowstorm, and I kept my car parked the whole time, and I filled my car up with canned goods. And so by the time I left Santa Fe, it was just like, you know, like just so heavy with canned food. And, like,
dragging on the ground.
Yeah, and so right before I got to Vegas, I pulled up into the mountains, and I wanted to refresh my blackjack ability, and I wanted to listen to radio. And I've been living in a dorm with 50 dudes for 2 months, so I wanted to just be alone. So I drove out there in the middle of nowhere, 10, 20 miles away from anybody, like where all the Area 51 area is, around that area. And then I just like lived out in my car for like 2 weeks until all my supplies dwindled to like almost nothing. So I figured I had like $20, right? I figured I'd pull into Vegas, turn that 20 into 100, turn the 100, you know, I'd be rolling from there. So I just needed the 20 to get started, but I kept a few cans of backup just in case, you know, the 20 didn't work out and I had to live off the cans. Guess what? I ended up I'm damn glad I kept those 3 cans with me. Because I got to Vegas and immediately I pulled in like a Walgreens shopping center to try to sleep. And then like an asshole cop pulls me over, he's the biggest prick, and he writes me a ticket for marijuana, and it's like, I'll just be a big prick. I made a video about it. But then Vegas is rough as fuck, and I lose the $20, and I'm down to my couple cans, and I'm living out of the library, and the cops are fucking with me, and it's just horrible. And I have no money and nobody to call, except for that one lady on the internet. I just wiped this off for a minute. Except for that one lady on the internet. And so I'm like, it's around Christmas. And that's one of the best parts of the book, Christmas Eve and stuff. Oh, I talk about that story on my TikTok videos. But that's when like the Christmas happened where the security guard gave me the steak and everything like that. And then so I spend Christmas in Vegas. I'm going to try to go a little faster, skip over that first right now. And then Christmas in Vegas, then New Year's in Vegas, and I do this crazy job of putting flyers on hotel room doors, on all the fancy hotel rooms, so the suites in Caesars, the suites in Bellagio, like, as well as the other floors as well. But we got to run from security too, because it's real illegal and shit. But we get paid like hundreds of dollars. And or about $100 or whatever, which is enough to get to Las Vegas to Reno. And I had a job on a farm set up in Reno, because Vegas was just like Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle, like big city. Welcome to the jungle, baby. You're gonna die. And so I'm like, fuck that. And then so I went to Reno to this famous school, but January 1st, 2012, I wake up and I drive from Las Vegas to Reno, and that was one of the craziest days driving. But at one point, I'll tell you one point while I was driving, there's a one-way highway and a cop pulls up behind me. Remember, I don't have a driver's license. I have a trash bag full of weed in the back seat. And I had my contacts in, and we're in the desert. And my windows are cracked. All of a sudden, it's like dirt gets in one eye. I'm like, fuck, dirt's in my eye. You know, and the cop's just riding right behind me, refuses to pass me. My speedometer doesn't work, so I have no idea how fast I'm going. And then I'm like, fuck, dirt's in my eye. Be calm, stay calm. He pulls me over in this game, yeah. And then so I'm like, and then I'm like, at least I got this one eye. And all of a sudden, dirt comes in the other window and gets that eye. And so now both eyes are covered. And so I'm just like driving with my eyes closed. Like, I cannot believe this is fucking happening. What the hell? Trying to see some sort of road, and a cop is behind me. I'm like, oh my god. And I can't pull over. I can't even see. It's better if I just stay because it's a straight road in the desert. And then finally the cop goes around me, and I'm like, god damn, I pull over. I get this dirt on my eyes. But I make it to Reno, and then there's a cop that's working on the farm in Reno, and he has a like weird like-hate thing with me or whatever. But I didn't have anything against him. I still think about him fondly. But I meet him on January 1st, and the head guy was this Tom Stilley, this older 72-year-old that was one of the founders of Burning Man, just like this big festival in Nevada in that area. And he's a fire spinner, so he spins fires. And he has this awesome school farm, and where I end up living, where he wants me to live like forever, because he loves me, you know, eventually. But you know those farmers. But I go there, and he's like, well, we have this replica of this cave in France that this artist made, and it's the first ever cave, the oldest cave paintings ever found, and it's this huge dome, like this dome building or room, and inside is a replica of all the artwork of the very first caves. And so I lived in this dome, and the snow would fall on the dome, and I just stare at like the very first oldest artwork of all the animals, the deer and the animal, the guy throwing the thing. And I just stayed in there, I'd smog it out, you know, with weed and stuff. And I was working for this guy at this famous farm in the area, and but it was all about him working for his dream and his goal and his thing. And I couldn't do that because I had my own dreams and own goals. And so I tried telling him that, and he suggested I get a job. And so I got a job at 7-Eleven that was on the other end of Reno. And so I'd wake up every day, and I'd walk like 10 miles there in the snow, and then 10 miles back, and then I'd work at the farm. And then after the farmer, they found out I was doing that, like walking 20 miles a day, he got me a bike, you know. And so then I did a bike. But then one day, there was an apartment, this friend of mine that also volunteered on the farm, he had an apartment near the 7-Eleven that his parents paid for. And he was like, hey, I'll sublease my apartment to you, you know, for $100 a month, because I stay at this farm anyways with my girlfriend. I was like, all right. And then so it was right by the 7-Eleven, so I worked at the 7-Eleven, had my own apartment there for $100 a month. And then I lived in Reno. That chapter is called 6 Months in Reno. And then the first book, my brother plays a big part. So this is the middle point of the second book. And so people are wondering, like, where's his psycho brother? He makes an appearance early in the book, but then, like, I'm traveling across the country, so they're like, where's your brother in the cats, you know? And then all of a sudden I'm in Reno working at a job, and my YouTube channel gets monetized, and I start getting checks from YouTube, you know, like $50, $100 a week from YouTube, from my original first YouTube channel. And I started making these picture story videos and working every day on my own craft. And looking back on my life, that was the moment where, like, my brother came in and was like, fuck this shit, we're gonna go have fun, adventures, you know? But I could have been like, put my foot on, no, this is important, monetize YouTube channel, writing essays every day. I would write an essay and then I would put picture stories with it. I would record an essay on a voice so then all of a sudden one day my brother just shows up with a cat on a rope, and he was like traveling across the country, and the cat's like like pissed off. I ended up being good friends with the cat. Like, he brings the cat inside, and Fuzz is like, his name is Fuzz, and Fuzz just starts hissing at us, and he comes up to me, and I swear to God, I'm reading a book in the corner of this apartment, and my friend is there too, that's leasing the apartment, but Fuzz just comes up to me and like, wow, knocks the book out of my hand, and then just looks at me and just starts scratching it, and then just hisses at me. I'm like, fuck! Like, rips out the book. I still remember what book it was. Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test by Tom Wolfe. But then I go in the corner, I'm like, your cat is scary. He's like, wow, you know. And then he's like, oh, he just needs to get his poopies out. You know, then my brother picks him up and he's like, go get your poopies out. Don't worry, go get your poopies out. And my psycho brother had been using his car as a litter box. You could literally smell it from down the street.
That's disgusting.
Like from a block down, you could smell like, what the hell? Someone got a litter box out?
Oh, it's Michael.
Yeah. And so he shows up and he somehow convinces me to sell my car, which I never actually did, but while I was at the library one day, I come back and my car's on bricks and he's having it sold and selling it, selling it away. Which gives him all the control because he had a car. So he's like, you don't need a car, come with me, we'll live in Berkeley. And I'm like, Berkeley? He's like, yeah, remember 12 years ago we had fun there, you know? And then he's like, I got a perfect spot on the map, you know? We'll go there, we'll camp out with my cat, you know, it'll be awesome. You know? And then so for some reason I listen and I'm like, okay. And so I sell my car and for scrap basically, the car I had for 10 years that I loved. And well actually I come back from the library and he's selling it. And I just like, okay, and I just sign it over or whatever. And then I get in the car and we say goodbye to my friend, and my friend's like, why, you're not ever coming back? I was like, no, dude, I'm just going to California. I'll be back, for real. Just like at the farm. It's like, don't worry, I'll be back. And my friend's sad. He's like, you know, I haven't ever had a friend like you, man. And I'm like, don't worry, dude. I'll be back. Come on, yeah. And then, of course, I really believed I would come back, but looking back, you know, of course not. But when we get in the car, Fuzz is in the back seat, and Michael's driving. He's like, okay, let's go. And then I get in the front seat, and then Fuzz, who had not been my friend during the time he's like kissing me, like looks at me. He's like, you're coming too? Like, and then just like, wow, and then jumps up here and gets right on my lap. And I'm like, oh shoot. And I'm like, oh, and starts like making biscuits. Like,
do that bit again.
And
do that bit again.
No, and then so I'm like, okay, and then so Fuzz like uses me as like a safety lap, you know, it's like he's just surprised I got into the piss car. And then we drive to Berkeley, and my brother's plan was so stupid. Like, and I told him in the apartment in Reno, I'm like, you're looking at a Google Maps and you think there's a huge camp area there? Like, we're gonna go there, there's these crazy people, it's not gonna be what you think. And then we go there and there's like crazy homeless people. And then like we were walking around with a cat in a carrier, you know, in a tent, like, oh, we're here to live. And then we're like, fuck, that's not gonna work out. And then so like I'm like, I gotta lay down. And then he's like, okay, you and Fuzz stay in the car, his car. And I'm all crammed in there because all of our shit's in there. And then I'll go find a camping spot. And then so my brother leaves, and I'm with our AM FM radio, and I remember listening to NPR with Fuzz, and just like, it's alright, Fuzz, you know, just being like, we'll get through, we'll figure it out, you know. And while my brother went to look for a camping spot, he was gone like all day, like 6-7 hours. And finally, he came back, he's like, I found a good spot, it's a little hard to get to. And then that chapter is called Berkeley or Bust, Part 2. And that's like a good more than half of the book. I would go further. I could go further, but I'm gonna end it right there. I'll let you know I've already written this book. It needs to be edited and perfected, but it's a great story. My first book is a great book. Second book, believe it or not, even better. So, all right, that's it.